This training on setting the millage rate is presented by the Carl Vinson Institute of Government. Let's begin our training on calculating and setting the millage rate with a discussion about property taxes. Property taxes are necessary because they help fund community services that improve our quality of life. Some examples of these types of community services include education, public safety, building and maintaining roads, planning and zoning, libraries, parks and recreation, and jails. Property taxes are levied to make up the difference between all other revenues received and the total revenues needed to fund essential government services. Of course, it should be noted that services are often cut to avoid property tax increases and that other sources of revenue are subject to fluctuation. To generate the needed property tax revenues in Georgia, a millage rate must be set at a level that, when applied to the tax jurisdiction's tax digest, will yield the required amount of revenue. We said that the millage is applied to the tax jurisdiction's tax digest. You might be wondering, what is a tax digest? The tax digest is the total value of all property in your tax jurisdiction before any exemptions. The gross tax digest is the total value before any exemptions. The value that remains after exemptions is called the net tax digest. You might also be wondering, what is a mill? A mill is a term used in Georgia that equals $1 per $1,000 of assessed property value. It is expressed in terms of 1/1000th of a dollar, or 0.001 times the assessed value. Remember that millage rates are set by the state, the local school board, the county governing authority, city council, and any other taxing authorities in the jurisdiction where your property is located. We stated earlier that property tax revenues are calculated based on the difference between planned expenditures and forecasted revenues from sources other than property taxes. The tax rate is obtained by dividing the amount required from property tax revenues by the net tax digest. Let's go through an example. A tax jurisdiction determines that $750,000 in property tax revenues is required to balance a $10 million budget. The jurisdiction's gross tax digest is $100 million. However, after exemptions, the net tax digest is $95 million. The amount needed to balance the budget, $750,000, is divided by the net tax digest amount of $95 million. If we take these amounts and apply them to our equation, we calculate the tax rate to be 0.00789. Multiplying 0.00789 by 1,000 equals 7.89, which is the mill rate. In other words, the mill rate is 7.89, or $7.89 for each $1,000 of taxable property. Our next step is to take the millage rate that was just calculated and use it to determine the tax jurisdiction's portion of property taxes. In Georgia, the majority of tax jurisdictions multiply the market value of property by an assessment ratio of 40%, which is set by law. Exemptions are then subtracted from the assessed value, which leaves the taxable assessed value. For example, if I have a home that has an appraised value of $100,000, then 40% of the $100,000, or $40,000, is its assessed value. If I have exemptions that total $10,000 and I subtract that amount from the assessed value, then I am left with a taxable value of $30,000. To calculate the amount of property tax owed, we divide the $30,000 by $1,000 and multiply times 7.89 mills, which equals an amount of $237 due for this tax jurisdiction's property taxes. Please note the tax is rounded to the nearest dollar in all examples. A property tax bill would be sent by the county tax commissioner and would include taxes associated with each taxing jurisdiction within the county. In this example, the tax bill would include the following jurisdictions: the county, the school board, and the city. Of course, city residents may not pay the same amount of county property taxes as those in the unincorporated area if they aren't receiving the same level of county services, and unincorporated residents will not pay city taxes. This concludes the training on setting the millage rate. A more in-depth discussion on the millage rate and how the millage rate is used to calculate property taxes is incorporated into a number of the Vincent Institute's financial management classes, including intermediate budgeting. You can obtain more detailed information about these classes at www.vincentinstitute.org/financial. The Vincent Institute appreciates your participation in this training.